Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating challenge, taking ancient Hindustani sounds and, believe it or not, translating them right onto a modern Western keyboard. We're going to unpack the official ABGMVM manual. Honestly, it's basically the ultimate musical Rosetta Stone. If you've ever wondered how two completely different musical universes can actually communicate and sync up, well, you're in exactly the right place.
So, right off the bat, this brings up a massive puzzle. How do you accurately play a centuries-old raga on a Western keyboard using standard sheet music? I mean, Eastern oral traditions and the Western 12-tone system, they operate on totally different logic. It's almost like they speak different languages. But the AkhilBharatiya Gandharva Mahavidyalaya Mandal, or ABGMVM for short, has created a rigorous standardized hybrid notation system to do exactly that for their syllabus. Let's see how they actually pull this off.
All right, here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, bridging two musical worlds. Second, anchoring the foundation. Third, the syllabus ragas. Fourth, deciphering rhythmic tals. Fifth, the keyboard curriculum. And finally, expressive touch and assessment. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Bridging two musical worlds, our translation matrix. Think about the stark differences we're dealing with here. On one hand, you've got the Indian Bhat Khande system. This relies heavily on the Devanagari script, deeply rooted oral traditions, and relative tuning. Then, in total contrast, you have Western staff notation, characterized by that highly visual grand staff and a rigid 12-tone equal temperament system. So, what the ABGVN manual does is create this standardized matrix. It literally places the Indian Swarlipi notation side by side with the Western grand staff. Boom, perfectly aligned.
Moving on to Section 2, anchoring the foundation and finding that baseline.
Now, to successfully translate between a relative pitch system and an absolute one, you desperately need a scientific anchor, specifically 261.63 Hz. The curriculum establishes middle C on the Western keyboard tuned precisely to that frequency as the universal SAW baseline. By locking in this one single pitch, the rest of the translation matrix just mathematically falls into place. Honestly, without a fixed starting pitch like this, trying to translate between these two systems would be absolute chaos.
So, branching out from that 261.63 Hz baseline, the 12 Western keys are mapped onto the 7 foundational Indian swaras across 3 distinct octaves. In Hindustani music, these are known as saptaks. First, we have the Mundra saptak, which is the lower octave, visually marked with a bottom dot. Then there's the Madhya saptak, the middle octave, no marks on that one. And finally, the Tar saptak, the higher octave designated by a dot on top. It is just such a clean, elegant way to visually represent vocal registers right on a piano keyboard.
Okay, Section 3, the syllabus ragas and melodic frameworks.
Now that our keyboard is perfectly aligned, Chapter 2 of the manual outlines 16 specific syllabus ragas, rigorously detailing their parent scales and focal notes. Take a look at Durga, Yaman, and Bhairav. Notice how Yaman and Bhairav share a Sampurna structure? That means they use all 7 notes. Durga, on the other hand, is Adav, meaning it operates on a pentatonic, 5-note structure. The curriculum gets incredibly specific here, detailing these permitted and omitted notes known as jati, their primary and secondary focal notes, and, amazingly, even the exact time of day they are supposed to be performed.
Next up, Section 4. Deciphering rhythmic tals and rhythmic theory.
You know, in Indian classical music, melody is really only half the equation. You also have to accurately transcribe these incredibly complex cyclical rhythms, or tals. The manual maps out 7 key tals by breaking down the beat units, called matras, into really precise mathematical divisions called vibhags. Teen tal, for instance, divides 16 beats symmetrically into groups of 4. But then you have damar tal, which is this massive 14-beat cycle divided asymmetrically into 5, 2, 3, and 4. It's a remarkably sophisticated way of tracking musical time. And check this out. When plotting a 7-beat rupak tal onto the standard staff, the curriculum translates its asymmetrical structure directly into a 7/8 time signature. It aligns those syncopated offbeat accents perfectly. This shows Western-trained hands exactly where the Indian rhythmic emphases belong, literally beat by beat.
Which brings us to Section 5, the keyboard curriculum and practical execution. Let's see how this all applies practically. The curriculum spans 40 distinct keyboard lessons, and they build up quite progressively. Lesson 1 starts with basic natural notes, the Shuddha Swaras, which maps perfectly to your standard C major scale. But by Lesson 8, the manual starts throwing in altered notes, specifically the sharp tivra-madhyam, which drops the student squarely into the melodic framework of Rag Yaman.
What's really fascinating here is that by lesson 16, the curriculum perfectly synthesizes all 4 flat notes, the Komoswaras, into a complete descending and ascending scale framework for Rag Bhairavi. By putting flats directly on D, E, A, and B, it essentially maps complex Indian microtonal concepts into standard Western accidentals, meaning any piano player can look at it and easily execute the notes.
And guys, it definitely doesn't stop at basic scales. As students advance, this hybrid notation tackles some seriously complex mechanics. We're talking 3-2 polyrhythms, pitting right-hand triplets against left-hand quarter notes. It dives into 10/8 Jupdal asymmetrical meters, 2-part contrapuntal inventions, and those massive 14-beat damar alignments we looked at earlier. It even challenges students to play dual manjams, meaning both the natural and sharp fourth notes back-to-back in Rag Lalit. I mean, it is a serious technical workout.
Finally, Section 6, Expressive Touch and Assessment.
So here's the crucial takeaway. Indian classical music isn't just about hitting the right notes on a page. It's really about the expression happening between those notes. Chapter 5 strictly codifies these oral embellishments into physical, repeatable keyboard mechanics. For example, a Khan swara, grace note, requires a subtle 20% key depression. A murki is this rapid 4-note turn squeezed into just a quarter of a beat. Meend actually translates vocal slides right to the electronic pitch wheel, and a gamaka requires a highly controlled wrist tremor to pull off. And this pedagogy isn't just theoretical, it's proven by a highly rigorous exam rubric. With a massive 50% of the examination weight placed purely on practical execution at the keyboard, and the remaining half split between theory and rhythmic recitation, it guarantees a truly well-rounded education. It ensures that students aren't just reading sheet music like robots, you know? They are genuinely internalizing a rich, cross-cultural musical language.
Which leaves us with a pretty provocative thought. If standardizing notation can successfully bridge Eastern traditions and Western instruments like this, what other ancient musical histories could we unlock? How else might we use sheet music as a translation matrix to preserve ancient art forms for modern musicians? Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning. I'll catch you in the next one.